When you think of the Netherlands, you picture bright tulips, windmills, and bicycles. Yet behind that picturesque facade hides a troubling truth. The country ranks among the most unequal in wealth distribution. Paradoxically, a nation famed for its social policy and high living standards ends up on a level with parts of southern Africa when wealth concentrates. To understand why, we must unpack what makes inequality such a stubborn, corrosive force. Have you ever wondered why conversations about wealth inequality spark such fierce debates? It's one of those topics that splits people into camps. Some see it as the root of all misfortune. Others view it as the natural outcome of a market economy. But what exactly is wealth inequality? Picture it as a pie. The wealthiest claim huge slices, the rest get crumbs. The problem is the pie cannot grow indefinitely. When someone takes a bigger share, the remainder shrinks. The wealthiest individuals own half of all wealth on Earth. According to the Oxfam study, just 1% of the richest owns half of the planet's assets. That means roughly 70 million people hold as much wealth as the remaining 7 billion. A simple example is that the fortune of one of the world's wealthiest could cover a country's annual budget. Madagascar, for instance. Wealth grows on its own for the rich through investments, dividends, and interest. Meanwhile, many ordinary people save little or none, as most earnings go to basic needs. The gap widens faster than ever. Over the past decade, the number of billionaires has doubled, while the poorest half of humanity lost about 11% of their assets. Imagine millions working 10 to 12 hours a day while their incomes shrink. In India, for instance, the wealth of the richest rose by $720 billion in a single year, 14 times the budget of the national health system. That pattern mirrors a broader global trend. Capital flows toward places where it is already plentiful. Numbers alone don't tell the full story. Inequality is measured in many ways: income, wealth, and access to resources. One widely used yardstick is the Gini coefficient, which indicates how evenly income or wealth is distributed. Behind the graphs lie real lives with unequal access to education, housing, and healthcare. The tale of inequality is tied to economic development. It has existed as long as economies have. But globalization, financial crises, and rapid technological change in recent decades have made the gap more visible. Whenever we discuss inequality, we face a twofold challenge: how it shapes society and what, if anything, we can do about it. Yet the central question remains universal. Why does inequality look so different from country to country? Take the Netherlands, a nation renowned for progressive social policy. Wealth is distributed with striking unevenness even in this country. The Netherlands is often cited as a model of social justice, with a strong welfare system, accessible health care, generous paid leave, and robust pensions. But according to the World Bank, the Netherlands ranks among the most unequal in wealth. Even South Africa, frequently labeled the leader in inequality, trails the Netherlands in this measure. The top 10% own more than 60% of the nation's wealth. Consider Charlene de Carvalho-Heineken, the richest woman in the Netherlands, whose fortune amounts to $15 billion. That figure surpasses the entire healthcare budget of several small nations. Meanwhile, more than half of young people under 35 have negative net worth, meaning their debts for education, housing, or cars exceed their assets. Old money and inherited fortunes remain untouched across generations. Historically, the Netherlands was among the earliest hubs of capitalism. with financial instruments like exchanges and joint stock companies appearing as early as the 17th century. Many of today's wealthiest families owe their fortunes to investments made by ancestors more than 4 centuries ago. These fortunes are shielded from taxes by intricate legal structures. Charlene de Carvalho-Heineken's family has owned Heineken for generations, growing from a small local brewery into a global brand, while real wealth lies in assets and investment portfolios protected from taxes and crises. The Dutch paradox becomes sharper when compared with neighbors Sweden, Denmark, or Norway. These countries also boast strong social policies, yet the wealth gap is smaller. What is the secret? The answer lies in history, the structure of the economy, and one more element that makes the Netherlands unique. To understand why wealth is so unevenly distributed, we can examine three key aspects: economic history, lending practices, and the tax regime. In the Netherlands, household debt ranks among the highest in the world. That may sound surprising, but taken together with the total debt, it reveals the burden carried by Dutch families. It tops 700 billion euros, more than half of the country's annual gross domestic product. The Dutch lending system is unique not only in scale, but in how it reshapes our sense of wealth. Imagine borrowing not 80 to 90% of a home's price, but the full amount, sometimes more. That may sound attractive, but hidden consequences lie beneath. For many Dutch homeowners, net worth is negative. Their debts exceed their home's value. It feels as if you own property, yet you remain in the red. Here the tax system comes into play. Mortgage interest and repayments can be deducted from the tax base, so the more you pay the bank, the less tax you owe. At first glance generous, but it incentivizes debt over capital building. As a result, a country with a robust social policy faces a paradox: formerly wealthy citizens financially diminished by heavy debt. Now consider inequality. Those with resources to invest can use the system to grow wealth as property values rise, while others bear heavier burdens. The very lending framework meant to ease ownership ends up widening the gap. Is this policy a failure? It did help millions of Dutch people obtain homes. Or is it a different side of the coin, where present comfort is paid for by future financial inequality? The accessibility of loans makes many look poorer on paper, since their net worth remains negative. Picture a young couple buying a home for 300,000 euros with a loan for the same amount, effectively starting life in minus. Wealth for the rich grows through tax loopholes. The Dutch tax system offers significant advantages to investors, including schemes that channel real estate through international investment vehicles to reinvest profits via foreign companies, thereby reducing domestic taxes. Why is Dutch wealth so concentrated? The answer lies in history. In the 17th century, the Netherlands was among the first to realize that wealth could expand through financial mechanisms, not just hard work. It became a hub of global trade, where ideas like joint stock companies and stock exchanges emerged. It was possible to back trading expeditions rather than own ships or goods, and still reap profits. Those who first mastered this system built wealth that endured for generations through spice trade or financial ventures, preserving and multiplying capital via investments and inheritance. Yet the core principles remained unchanged even if companies or assets shifted, and wealth passed as a family heirloom. Its power undiminished because time is money's best ally. And there is more. Unlike other nations where shocks can wipe out wealth, the Dutch system proved remarkably stable, with financial crises, wars, and revolutions largely bypassing fortunes. Perhaps this stability came from investing capital not only in goods or land, but also in durable financial instruments. Consider how this history shapes today. Old money keeps accumulating, widening the gap between heirs and others, like a marathon where some start with a vast head start. It seems unfair, doesn't it? In 2021, a study showed that only 1% of the wealthiest Galanders pay the supply tax, effectively below the middle-class rate due to deductions linked to investments and real estate expenses. For example, a Galander who owns a network of rental properties can declare a low income while wealth grows through rising asset values. All these factors form a vicious circle of debt, inherited wealth, historical capital accumulation, and tax loopholes that fortify the rich. But that is not all. If the Netherlands, with its progressive policies, cannot fix this, what does it say about the global economy? The Dutch experience is not merely a national story, but a universal warning for any country grappling with wealth inequality. Wealth concentrates in real estate, and access to housing becomes harder. At first glance, high home ownership seems a success. But the paradox is that housing becomes a tool for investment for the rich, not a place to live. More than 20% of all property belongs to investors who earn income from rents. As a result, rents in Amsterdam, The Hague, and Rotterdam rose by 30% in the last 5 years, making housing unaffordable for most young families. For instance, the average rent in central Amsterdam is €1,500 per month, almost half the average salary. This trend sharpens social stratification. The wealthy profit from rents, while the ordinary middle class spends more and more just to keep a roof over their heads. This is worsened by pension funds, which project an illusion of wealth, while the underlying reality is far sterner. In the Netherlands, the pension system is regarded as among the most stable worldwide. Yet behind that stability lies a vast portion of capital funneled into international assets, real estate, and securities. This pool surpasses €1.7 trillion, nearly twice the country's annual GDP. However, access to these funds for ordinary citizens is extremely limited, with barely 3% understanding where their pension savings go. Moreover, the average pension often turns out to be lower than expected. And when markets fall, the burden of risk rides on future retirees. For instance, during the crisis of 2008, many pension funds reduced payouts, leaving thousands with meager retirement incomes. From these facts, several lessons emerge. Lesson 1. Taxes are not a magic solution. High rates paired with social benefits do not automatically deliver equality. In the Netherlands, tax relief on homeowners has effectively concentrated wealth rather than redistributed, prompting questions about the efficiency of modern tax systems. Lesson 2. Debt and wealth are two sides of the same coin. Encouraging credit can improve lives, but also distorts the true picture of wealth. If a sizable portion of the population carries negative net worth because of debt, official inequality figures lose their meaning. This calls for a new approach to measuring wealth and debt in global statistics. Lesson 3. Time matters. Wealth accumulates across generations. In economies with deep financial markets and stable growth, old money tends to fortify its position. Other nations must recognize that reducing inequality requires not only taxes, but policies that curb unrestrained transfer of enormous fortunes. Lesson 4. Access to opportunities. In the Netherlands, most people enjoy a high standard of living, despite stark wealth concentration. This underscores the importance of ensuring basic guarantees: education, healthcare, and housing for all. Real justice means not only equal numbers, but equal chances. If even the Netherlands, with its tradition of progressive social policy, cannot fully tame inequality, what hope remains for other countries? Perhaps a central task is not to erase the gap entirely, but to reach a balance in which it no longer endangers social cohesion. Share your reflections in the comments.